Welcome into Pirate Talk and glad to have you with us. Al Myatt joined by Kevin Monroe. Kevin, of course, an outstanding defensive back in his playing days at East Carolina, a captain on that illustrious 1999 team, and two sons, one of which is committed to Stanford and will join the Cardinal this summer, and younger son, Butter, who is a rising sophomore, I believe, at Green Level and in the midst of all-season training at the present time to develop his skill level and physical stature. And Kevin, a lot to talk about in terms of East Carolina athletics. We are in the midst of basketball season. A lot of anticipation for football with the transfer portal signings, final recruiting class announced. And, of course, baseball starts on Friday. The Pirates hosting Xavier for a 3-game series. And let's start with football. And spring ball is going to be getting underway in mid-March. And the spring football game date has been released. That will be April 18th. That's a Saturday. And the spring game scheduled for 1 p.m. And among the subplots in spring football, of course, will be that quarterback competition. You got Emory Williams coming in from Miami and Mitch Griffiths, a transfer from Texas Tech. And things shape up as a quarterback competition between those two.
Yeah, Griffiths is the smaller in stature player. He's only about 6 foot tall, under 200 pounds. I wouldn't say he's a running quarterback by any means, but he can move well enough to make things happen with his legs. He's got a strong arm though with his smaller size. But Emory Williams is a little bit different. He's the big, tall, 6'5", 225 guy. They both played Power 4 football. Mitch at both Texas Tech and Wake Forest, and then Emory at Miami. And so it's exciting. It takes you back to 2 years ago when the Pirates had Garcia and Hauser come in from Power 4 programs. And we got an opportunity to see them kind of go at it until Hauser rose to the top with his ability. And so I'd like to think that this spring ball is going to be kind of the beginning of this new story, this new quarterback story, this new story of the offense under the new offense coordinator. But in this day and age, the cool thing about it, and I think the Pirates ended up signing 22, 23 guys here recently. And the thing about it in this day and age is that most of the guys, all of the guys in the portal, and then most of the guys out of high school all enter school in January. The high school guys graduate early. The transfer guys leave right after their December school lets out, and they're on campus as soon as they have signed with a new team. And so you get an opportunity for 20 some odd guys, brand new guys of the program, to be there for spring ball. So right now they're all learning the playbook, they're all training together. The football season is a year-round deal. Obviously, I played, and when the season ends in December, you're lucky enough to go to a bowl game. That takes you to the end of December, and then January you get a little bit of a break, but then winter conditioning and winter training starts, and that goes on until just before spring football. You get a little bit of a break there, and then spring ball starts, and then you kind of go spring to summer to fall. So you don't get a whole lot of time off as it pertains to just being a football player, and so. I'm super excited to see how these guys, all these brand new guys of the program, plus the new coaches, can meld together over these next, 6 weeks or so until it's time to lace them up and get out there for spring ball. So it's a fun time for Pirate football, all these new players and new coaches.
I think, as you had said at one time, spring practice is just so important these days in terms of getting a team formulated and meshing, because you have so many roster additions. And in East Carolina's case, you have new coordinators and potentially new systems.
Yeah, it's interesting with Blake Harrell as the head coach. You never really worry about defense too much, but they did lose their defense coordinator. to South Florida, and so they had to make a change and hire a new guy. But I know that Blake's going to have his hand on this defense, so I wouldn't worry as a Pirate fan, regardless of who the defense coordinator is going to be. And in this program, he's always going to have his hands on it. They're going to be a tough, aggressive defense and play good ball. I think last year we forgot who Blake Harrell was, and we said, well, we don't have a ton of stars returning. We had guys like Raheem Craig and J.D. Lampley and a couple guys like that, but we didn't have the big names of the past. And so, Ridley and Wilk came back and stepped up, and they put on a show on defense. And so just, most of those guys are gone now, but it doesn't really matter because that Coach Harrell and this staff will get those guys ready defensively to play football. And the offensive side of the deal, you get Coach Jordan coming over from North Texas. They scored 49 points in the bowl game against a top 25 defense. He can call plays. He knows schemes and systems, and now he's got two quarterbacks that he can try to meld to look like what he wants it to look like. And you got brand new running backs after losing 3 running backs last season in Montgomery. And a couple others. And so you got to replace those guys. We know what Engelman can do from what he did last year. You bring in Michael Allen. That's not another guy late. So they've got some running backs to figure things out. And then, offensive line. And that offensive line, they're not going to have – they lost 2 guys in the portal. They're their best 2 players. They lost a few others. So they only have 2 guys that had any starts at all returning. But they were able to sign 3 guys in the portal. One of them 6'4", another one 6'7", the other one's 6'4". All of them have plenty of playing time. I think all 3 are seniors coming in from programs. And so it'll take them a little while to mesh together, but that's what spring football is all about. So hope to see those guys come in, hit the ground running.
The immediate measuring stick is Alabama in the season opener. And you've got to be ready for that test going to Tuscaloosa. And the Crimson Tide, Ty Simpson announced that he was going to the NFL draft. So they will be playing with a first-year starter at quarterback, and that perhaps evens things out just a bit in terms of the matchup coming up September 5th.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how many times the coaches tell them, hey, they play good football at East Carolina. They're not going to believe it, right? Because they're playing a group of 5 opponent at home, first game of the season. They're just going to assume that East Carolina is not very good. And I tell you what, I think that Michigan did that early on. And that was a much tighter game, much closer game than I think that Michigan thought it was going to be until, they started to pull away and they were able to run the football and different things like that. But, J.J. McCarthy early on, he had some pressure on him, had some heat coming at him. Those 2 Heisman candidate running backs were getting tackled more often than they thought they were going to get tackled. And so I would expect, especially early on, first quarter at least, for the Pirates to be in this game and put some pressure on them. And then you'll see what happens if you can get into the second half with the game close enough, then you can make some plays. But yeah, I think that this is an Alabama team. It's not the Alabama of old, right? This is not Nick Saban's Alabama. They're not just going to steamroll teams from the beginning to the end. They win a lot of close games over the last couple of years under Kalen DeBoer. So I would expect the Pirates to go down there and hold their own for a while. And who knows what happens later in the game.
Well, we'll see how the Pirates prepare and have an idea based on the spring game coming up. It is basketball season. The Pirates are 7-16 at this point, going into a home game Wednesday night, and 2-8 in the American Conference. The home game coming up is with Texas San Antonio, which has not won an American Conference game this year. As we were saying before we started taping, it's about playing well going into the conference tournament and being able to make that run potentially for an NCAA berth. I'm not sure anybody in the American is going to get an at-large berth this year. So it's going to be all about the tournament March 11th through March 15th, the American tournament in Birmingham. They've moved that location from Fort Worth, where it's been held for a number of years. But Jordan Riley has been carrying the team offensively, 23.3 points per game, started his college career at Georgetown, and then transferred to Temple and subsequently to East Carolina. 23.3, that's among the national leaders. He had 32 points Saturday in a home loss to Temple. And I think he's been over 33 of the last 4 games. And Giovanni Imajuru, a transfer from George Mason, he has been everything inside for the Pirates, 13.3 points, 9.6 rebounds. And then Dimitri Gardner's averaging 9.7. The outside shooting has been a sore point for the Pirates. They are not hitting a good percentage, but Gardner has bolstered that to a degree. And when the Pirates went on the road and won by 1 point at Florida Atlantic, they hit 40% from behind the arc. And so they are capable of shooting from long distance. And when they do, they become much more competitive.
I like what I've seen, at least as of late, from this basketball team. The tough part about this season is that you start off the season and you're losing to teams that you probably think the Pirates should be more competitive against. But as you alluded to, and the important part about this whole deal is you're trying to get tuned up to get close to the conference tournament so you can go on a run. And before you get to the conference tournament, you play conference play. And so of these last handful of conference games, the Pirates have been in just about every one. I think it was a 77-60 game against Wichita State. But you throw that one out, most of these games have been 4, 5, 6 point games. And they've found a way to be in them. They just haven't found a way to win them all. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's outside shooting. So it's good to see Gardner come in. I think he's shooting 54%, like 13 for 24 from 3 since he's been there. And so he's been that added spark. He's been the guy that can knock down the outside shot. But even Jordan Riley, I mean, that's not his game. He's more of a slasher. Obviously, he's a highlight reel dunker. The big guy down low is pretty good at rebounding and playing solid defense. But they don't have that guy, Calker, at point guard, getting the ball into the big man and trying to find a way to get points in the paint has been a little bit of a struggle, and outside shooting has been a struggle. So it's hard for them to kind of put things all together that they need to kind of win some of these games. But I like defensively how they're playing. Very rarely do teams get in the 80s on them. Games are usually in the 70s and 60s. So defensively, they hustle and they spread the floor and they're getting in passing lanes and they're making some things happen, getting some breakaway dunks. But Coach Schwartz has got to find a way to win some of these close games. And whether it's injuries and outside shooting or something, they've got to piece it together. It's been a little bit of a struggle, but at least in conference, they're playing tough.
Well, they're doing a good job of playing to their strengths and trying to minimize their weaknesses, Kevin. And, looking at a potential run in the American Conference tournament, you were in Greenville in 1993. That was the last time that the Pirates won a league tournament and made the NCAA. And there was just a lot of excitement around that team in 1993.
Yeah, I mean, Greenville was a buzz with this team. I mean, it was they went on a great run to make that way into the NCAA tournament, and obviously they get to play Carolina in the first round that year. And it was just it was a really cool story to watch guys like Lester Lyons, and he was hitting every shot and kind of the leader, kind of the Jordan Riley of that team, if you will. And I can just remember, as a junior in high school, I think I was at the time, being recruited by Coach Logan. And so I was hanging out with some of those football players over on campus, and the Morris Foremans and the Marcus Crandalls and those guys, as they would show myself and Troy Smith around, and we get to go to basketball games. And so I got to see some of those games and get close to those basketball players. Everybody treats recruits good. So I was able to kind of schmooze my way in there, man. And it was just fun. Every game was exciting. Minji's was packed. And it was just a cool feeling. And when you're in it, you don't realize how hard it is to get to the NCAA tournament, how hard it is to win your conference tournament and make it. And seeing as though they have not, had an opportunity to get back there, I think everybody realizes how tough it is. I do remember, though, several years back when they won that CBA tournament, I think it was called, and the kid hit the big 3-point shot at the buzzer to win that championship. That was really cool, but nothing like the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that was Akeem Richmond in Provo, Utah. I have yet to understand if it's Weber State or Weber State, but they did knit them. And that was the College Invitational Tournament. Jeff
CIT,
Lebo
that's
was
right.
coach.
That's right.
And they were in Conference USA at that time. which was not nearly as strong as the American when the American had Cincinnati, Houston, and Central Florida.
That's
But
right.
that was quite a run that they made. A lot of excitement around ECU basketball that year. I think it might have been 2014 was when that took place. But talking about your background, Kevin, you've got some baseball at East Carolina on your resume, and the Pirates opening Friday, as we mentioned, with Xavier. But you were a teammate of Cliff Godwin, and your dad was Cliff's homeroom teacher at Green Central.
That's right. Yeah, it's you're taking me back. So I graduated high school in 1995, so 30 years ago, and Cliff was 1 year behind me in school. So Cliff graduated in 1996, but because my junior year, my dad got the job at Green Central, and so Cliff was one of his first students, and he was in his homeroom, and so I got to know him, and Cliff and I would open up the gym at Green Central. I go up there on the weekends and play one-on-one basketball with him, and we kind of hang out. So we got to be pretty good friends before we even went to college. And he was so competitive. I just never forget, he was a good basketball player too. People don't know that about Cliff. He was a good basketball player. So we would have these battles, and neither one of us would let each other win. And we'd be fouling, and half those games ended in a tie. But it was just a good time, with Cliff. And then we played against each other in baseball. I was at Greenville Rose. He was at Green Central, obviously, and so we probably had the better program back then, even though Coach Fulgham at Green Central had a really good baseball program. And then I went on to East Carolina, and as I was being recruited, Coach Logan said, you can play baseball here if you want, because he knew that Coach Overton was recruiting me out of high school, and he said, but I want you to come to spring football your freshman year and just wait until your sophomore year to start playing baseball. And so I kind of had a 1 year probationary period, you might say, to make sure I got acclimated to school and to football. He didn't want me playing both sports and having to do school all my very first year. He thought it might be too much. And so by the time I got out to baseball in 96, it was Cliff's freshman year, because he was a year behind me. And so we were freshmen, basically baseball freshmen together. And Coach Overton, he took good care of me, and I started quite a few games that year and played in the outfield. Cliff wasn't playing that much; he was redshirting. In that following year, Coach Overton left, and Coach LeClaire came in. So I got to play Coach Overton's last year and Coach LeClaire's first year. And I can just remember Coach LeClaire coming into the locker room saying, guys, I know baseball here has been a little bit tough recently, and we were just very average. We were going 500, sub 500, a couple games over 500. Every year in and year out, never any progression. And he came into the locker room and said, "We're going to go to Omaha." And we all kind of looked at him like he was crazy. Like, we're so far from Omaha right now. And but he changed the mindset. And I hate that I only played that 1 year with him. I just got this, I started to focus too much on football, became a starter on the football team, and I thought I had a better opportunity to play in the NFL than I did Major League Baseball. So I moved on. But it was a fun time. And literally the year after I left, I think it was 98, they made their first regional and started really winning. And then from then on, they were just never missing regionals and playing really, really well. So getting a chance to follow that program, even after I left, was really cool. So my experience with Cliff going way back. And one cool story, I think Cliff still holds the record for the most consecutive games with a home run at East Carolina. And I don't remember the number. My dad will get mad at me about this, but I think it was 13 or 12 or something. But I remember I was with the Carolina Panthers. I signed with them. And so I think it was that spring. And so I was going back and forth to mini camps and training up there in Charlotte. My dad would send me an email or something and say, "Cliff hit another home run." I was like, "You gotta be kidding," because he wasn't a home run hitter. He wasn't a home run hitter in high school. He wasn't really a home run hitter in college. And he just got locked in. And man, he just took off. And it's so cool. I mean, he would tell you too that he didn't know what was going on, but the ball looked like a beach ball coming down the middle of the plate, and he was just lighting it up. And so that was just such a fun time for him. And he and I are still very close and talk pretty often. But I'm excited for him in this baseball program. I can remember when we would play early in the season, you would always play the teams from the north. And so you think about Xavier coming in because they barely got outside to play any baseball because it's been so cold where they are. So all these teams that are getting full of snow and ice, and It hadn't been much better around here, but they come south to play baseball. This was first really all of February. And so they'll play a lot of games at home, welcoming those northern teams. And so having Xavier come in that first weekend will be a lot of fun here coming up.
Well, I was telling you that I found a media guide. It was like 2000 in that range of time. And I told you that Cliff Godwin had hair on his head at that time and no hair on his chin. And now the hair has progressed down to his chin and he goes bald-headed up top. But you mentioned that early schedule. There's going to be some really good matchups. There's a series with UNC starting February 20th in Greenville. They'll play February 21st at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park and February 22nd in Chapel Hill. March 4th, they go to UNC Wilmington, and the Seahawks are picked first in the Coastal Athletic Association. East Carolina goes to Coastal Carolina, site of their regional last year, and that's March 6th through the 8th. And they had some great games there in Conway, South Carolina last year, beating Florida, number 17 nationally, beat the Gators twice in the NCAA tournament. And then the Keith LeClaire Classic this year, February 27th through March 1st. And that will include Rutgers, Troy, and Western Carolina, which is where Keith LeClaire went to school. The Western Carolina Catamounts. East Carolina ranked number 25, I believe, in the preseason poll by Baseball America. Luke Payne, I guess, is the transfer that kind of jumps out to me in terms of what East Carolina got through the portal. They lost some good pitchers potentially that transferred, but there's a strong nucleus coming back. Ethan Norby's a left-hander, 8-5 last year, 3.80 earned run average, and he made a number of Friday night starts. Colby Wallace is back, 10 homers last year, 42 RBIs. He can pitch if necessary. Jack Herring, 302 with 5 home runs, 28 RBIs last year. Braden Burris, talking about Green Central, and he's a player that Cliff Godwin was not going to allow to get in the portal, and he did not. 389 as a freshman, 18 stolen bases out of 22 attempts. And then Austin Irby plays first base, hit 303 last year as a freshman, 12 home runs, 50 RBIs, very disciplined hitter, and takes a good approach to the plate. So the Pirates have a good, solid nucleus coming back, in addition to what players that were in the program that may have developed in the offseason and what the transfer portal might add in terms of looking to make to win an American Conference championship, hopefully for the and make the NCAA tournament for the 7th straight year.
Yeah, I think Coach Godwin was a little bit rigid towards the portal initially, but he has definitely softened to the idea over the last few years, with this past year being the biggest one yet. I think he knew that he had to go out and get some talent, go out and get some arms in that pitching rotation, go out and get some bats, some guys that can hit the ball over the fence, some utility infielders, guys that can play all different positions, get some speed. I think he did a really good job of doing that. You mentioned that, there's one or two guys that stand out, not a ton of guys with a lot of hype coming in, but Cliff knows baseball. And these guys he brought in, they're good baseball players, guys that he can mold and get them to play Pirate baseball. I love he plays a lot of small ball. He'll bunt guys over. He'll hit and run. Guys steal a lot in his program, so he loves speed. He loves guys that can handle the bat well, hit the ball backside, and kind of move runners around. But also those guys that can go up hit the long ball, and change a game in one swing. And so definitely excited to have Norby coming back. Friday night starter. A lot of the year last year, and just guy that could just strike. Man, had 20 strikeouts or something in one game. The guy just can light it up. And he's just so tough to see that ball come out of his hands. He's so tough to pick it up, to pick up the spin, the rotation. And hitters really struggle against him. ERA under 4 all season long last year. So he's the kind of player that the Pirates are glad to have back and excited to have for another year. You talked about some of those guys that can come in that were transfers that can instantly make a difference. And so I'm excited about Pirate baseball. I think last year was a bit of a struggle. I would expect a much better regular season this year than last year, but they figured it out at the right time. Made a little bit of a run in the conference tournament, won that, and then as you said, played well against Florida. Even aside from their head coach having that meltdown there in that regional, and so I think you'll see better baseball early in the season and throughout the season from the Pirates than we did a year ago because they've got a better roster. And last year they were just really young, and so Cliff realized that and went in the portal and got some older players, and he's got some guys returning that got a lot of experience last year. And so this is a team that I think will impress people early on, and it won't take the end of the season for them to turn it on.
And I mentioned Luke Payne, I believe it is, a tall left-hander transferring from Tennessee, very highly recruited, and we'll see how he develops at East Carolina. And, Cliff is working with more resources now. I think at one time it was 11.5 scholarships, and he kind of distributed those among the roster as he saw fit. I think he's got 25 scholarships now, and they're facility enhancements that are planned. There's a nil specifically for baseball, and so more resources, and generally that contributes to success for your program.
Oh, there's no question, and I'm dating myself, obviously going back to the mid '90s, but I want to say we didn't have a single full scholarship player because Coach Overton and Leclerc did the same thing, as they basically split up whatever number of scholarships we had amongst all of the starters to try to build a program. And I think the highest percentage of scholarship any one player had was 2/3%, so 66% scholarship, and that was the highest, and that was like our top pitcher at the time. And so you were lucky to be on half scholarship. Most guys were on a third or less. Luckily, I was on a football scholarship, so I didn't need any baseball money. But it was tough back then. And so to have 25 scholarships now, where you can give several fulls if you need to, and then put guys on partial, and then you have the NIL to maybe make up the difference, is a big change from where programs used to be.
All right, we'll see the 2026 season as it begins to unfold on Friday, weather permitting, with Xavier coming in 32-27 last year, and the Musketeers 14-7 in the Big East Conference. So that is the immediate situation for baseball. Basketball at home Wednesday night against Texas San Antonio. And Kevin, certainly enjoyed another edition of a Pirate Talk, and we'll look forward to talking again soon.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Al.